Does anyone really believe the Minnesota Vikings are going to let this guy walk in free agency? Surprisingly, yes, some people do.
I don't see that with Sam Darnold yet. I don't know how the playoff run is going to go. If I am the Minnesota Vikings, I franchise tag him.
But do you kind of say, well, let's kind of see him do it his second year?
The man hasn't thrown for 300 yards since November 24th against Chicago. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. I mean, we acted like that. Let's not act like this is the second coming of Dan Marino.
The Minnesota Vikings have a problem. Usually a team that's 14-2 and has Super Bowl aspirations is complete with far more answers than question marks. But this team has a looming decision on the horizon, and for a squad that's built to compete for the next half decade with the stud head coach calling the shots, a stacked offensive roster, it could be a difference that either wins them or costs them the Lombardi. Sam Darnold's 2024 season with the Minnesota Vikings has completely upended the narrative that followed him for the first 6 years of his career. He was USC's surfer boy looking QB who played lights out in the 2016 Rose Bowl, impressed everyone in a rain-soaked pro day, and became the third overall pick in the 2018 draft ahead of Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, and most significantly, Josh Rosen. Sam Darnold is still just a 27-year-old QB who had been all but dismissed as an abject bust and a reluctant ghost whisperer after disappointing stints with the Jets and Panthers, then a backup year to Mr. Irrelevant in San Francisco, and is now leading a dominant Vikings team into the thick of the playoff race in the NFC, still gunning for that first seed in the conference. He's putting up numbers that have not only defied expectations, but also demand a re-evaluation of his entire career. But as the Vikings prepare for a critical offseason with a first-round rookie QB looming in the background, Darnold's resurgence raises one of the biggest questions in the NFL. What the fuck do the Vikings do with him? Today we'll find out on That's Good Sports. We have crossed 684,000 subscribers here, trying to get to 700,000 before the end of the football season. And don't forget, today's episode is sponsored by Underdog. Use my code THAT'SGOOD if you're going to sign up and play Underdog, which provides daily fantasy, pick'em games. These are my picks for the week if you want to play against me. Just play against me because I'm always wrong. But there's just a couple days left for us to hit 5,000 signups on Underdog. If that happens, I will bring back the monkey tail beard for the NFL playoffs and Super Bowl. The Vikings have actually been down this road before, right? Case Keenum had an amazing season in Minnesota in 2017, and they moved on from him in favor of Kirk Cousins, which was 100% the correct move. This situation, though, is unprecedented, which is why I find it fascinating, even though I think the choice is an easy one. Send JJ McCarthy back to Michigan and maintain his NFL rights like he were an MLB player. The Vikings have two top 10 picks as their quarterbacks. It's almost like they can't make a wrong decision, but Sam Darnold is not Case Keenum. Sam is becoming the quarterback everyone thought he would be when he was coming out of USC. Case Keenum overachieved expectations, which is very different than finally living up to them. But how did Sam Darnold and the Vikings reach this point? Kevin Seifert from ESPN.com wrote a great piece about Sam Darnold that stretches all the way back to the spring, before the Vikings were on the clock in the 2024 NFL Draft. It started on April 25th, 2024. Darnold had signed a one-year deal with the Vikings just a month and a half earlier, and draft day was finally here. Minnesota was ready to use the 10th overall pick to select Michigan's JJ McCarthy, which of course they had to trade up to do. Now from the outside, it looked like Sam Darnold was a placeholder, a stopgap to bridge the gap until McCarthy was ready to take over at QB. But Kevin O'Connell, the Vikings head coach, saw things differently. On the morning of the draft, in the middle of what had to be one of the busiest days of his year, O'Connell called Darnold into his office for a 45-minute meeting. The message was simple but powerful. The rookie wouldn't be rushed onto the field, and Darnold would have a real shot to show what he could do. O'Connell told him he was more than just an insurance policy for McCarthy. He was a key part of the team's plan for 2024. Now, don't quote me on this exactly, but O'Connell said, "Sammy, can I call you Sammy? Did you see me coach the shit out of Kirk Cousins? And then Josh Dobbs and Nick Mullins last year? Fuck, dude, I had to have Jaron Hall throw 20 passes. Give me a chance, and the only dead people you'll be seeing are the defenses we bury together. Now let's fucking go." That would get me ready to play too. For Darnold, though, it was a foundational moment. After years of bouncing between bad situations, he finally felt like he'd landed somewhere with a clear plan to help him succeed. Turned out that was indeed the case. Through 16 games, Darnold has air-delivered 4,153 yards and 35 touchdowns, numbers that have blown past his previous career highs. Over the last 7 games alone, he's been on fire. 2,012 passing yards, 18 TDs, and just 2 picks. He's making big plays too, leading the NFL with 21 completions on throws that traveled at least 20 yards in the air. Some of those throws, like a 97-yard bomb to Justin Jefferson and a 49-yarder to Jordan Addison, feel like passes Jets fans could have only dreamed of in his first 3 seasons. It's not just the stats, though. Darnold looks poised and confident, a far cry from the player we saw struggling under pressure in New York and Carolina. Probably the lowest point of his career in New York, other than missing time to mono, was when an ESPN mic caught him saying that Bill Belichick's defense was causing him to see ghosts.
Seeing ghosts, it was a rough day out there, rough night out there, and obviously I got to be better. And
he no longer sees ghosts, but defenders are. The irony of all that is thick. Belichick's defenses now would only cause one to see co-eds, and a co-ed is who probably gave Sam Darnold mono in the first place when he was just a 15-year-old starting QB in the NFL. Full circle. A lot of Sam's success can be traced back to likely Coach of the Year Kevin O'Connell and the system he's built in Minnesota. The Vikings' offense is loaded with talent, including Justin Jefferson, who will finish with over 1,500 yards and double-digit touchdowns in a down year, and Jordan Addison, who's closing in on 900 yards himself.
And for Jordan Addison, that's the first 3-touchdown game of his career.
TJ Hockenson has been gone half the season as he recovered from injury, but has contributed recently, and the offensive line has given Darnold the time he needs to make his reads, and that's without their best fucking tackle on the field. It's a system designed to play to Darnold's strengths: quick decision-making, accuracy on intermediate throws, and a big arm for stretching the field. All things we hadn't seen since he was lighting up the Pac-12 back in Southern California in the year, oh God, yes, 2017. But let's not overlook the mental side of Darnold's transformation. This is a quarterback who's had every reason to lose confidence in himself. He came into the league as the number 3 overall pick in 2018 when he was just 20. Hailed as a franchise savior for the Jets. Instead, he became a poster child for organizational dysfunction, cycling through coaches from Todd Bowles to Adam fucking Gase, offensive schemes, and rosters that gave him little chance to succeed.
Sam Darnold has never been surrounded by anything that would give a quarterback a chance to succeed.
And of course, an owner who refused to trade for Jerry Jeudy because his Madden rating was too low.
I've come to the conclusion the New York Jets should try one more season with Sam Darnold as their quarterback and trade the number 2 pick in this draft.
After 3 tough years in New York, Darnold landed in Carolina, where things didn't get much better. I actually made a video about how Darnold had the worst quarterback performance in a victory that I had ever seen. By the time he arrived in Minnesota, it felt like he was running out of chances. Yet, here he is, not just surviving, but thriving. And while the numbers are incredibly impressive, what's really striking is how he's handled adversity this season. Take Week 10 against the Jaguars, for example. Darnold threw 3 interceptions, targeting Justin Jefferson in a game that could have easily derailed his momentum. Instead of benching him, O'Connell defended him publicly and stuck with him, The result, Darnold bounced back with a string of performances that have vaulted him into the MVP conversations. It's a testament to his growth as a player and a leader, and fitting, he's slimly trailing a division rival and another quarterback we wrote off in Jared Goff. And I'm talking about slimly trailing Goff in pretty much every quarterback metric. What may have been the turning point for Darnold was his year in San Francisco with Kyle Shanahan. On the Monday Night Football broadcast against the Bears, Lisa Salters was talking about how Darnold learned more about defenses from Kyle Shanahan than anything on the offensive side of the ball. He got better at diagnosing and exploiting coverages, and the proof is in the purple pudding up there in Minneapolis. And if you ever see purple pudding, you know that pervert Grimace has just been milked to completion, and I don't recommend gulping it down. Of course, Darnold's resurgence comes with its own critical dilemma for the Vikings. He's set to become a free agent this offseason, and the market for quarterbacks is always competitive. Darnold's value has skyrocketed. He's now ranked as far and away the top pending free agent QB, ahead of names like Justin Fields, Jameis Winston, Cooper Rush, possibly Aaron Rodgers and Kirk Cousins. Comparisons to his former draft classmate and Panther teammate Baker Mayfield are already being made. Mayfield, another quarterback from the 2018 draft, revived his career in Tampa Bay and parlayed a strong season into a 3-year, $100 million deal. For Darnold, that will likely be the floor for a new deal because Darnold's outperforming 2023 Baker Mayfield. According to the Seifert article on ESPN, an AFC executive recently speculated that Darnold could command $35 to $40 million annually, especially with a relatively thin 2025 draft class making veteran quarterbacks even more valuable. I think it'll be north of that by a large margin. I also think all the teams we assume are targeting a quarterback in the draft, the Giants, the Raiders, possibly the Titans, will be significantly interested in Darnold's services. So what does Minnesota do? Well, one option is to use the franchise tag, which would keep Darnold in purple for another year at around $40 million. Ah, yes, the Washington Kirk Cousins strategy. That would buy the team more time to evaluate McCarthy, who hasn't been able to take a single snap this season due to a torn meniscus. The rookie has been diligent in his recovery, using virtual reality and helmet cam footage from Darnold's practices to stay sharp mentally. Plus, he's been a nice team cheerleader on Twitter. But let's face it, there's no substitute for real game reps. And McCarthy is essentially starting from scratch. And let's talk about McCarthy. Even if he wasn't slated to start in the beginning of the season, he looked really good in limited preseason snaps, even if it was against the Raiders' backups. McCarthy just isn't an unproven commodity because of his injury. He was taken so high largely based off of tools and projection. He'll be 22 in late January and was by far the youngest QB to go in the first round of the 2024 draft. He really didn't throw the ball a lot at Michigan because of how thoroughly dominant their run game was with Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards, plus that massive offensive line that was clearing out lanes and giving McCarthy all day to throw. That's not to say he can't be a productive passer in the league, but he certainly didn't have the level of reps and experience that we saw out of Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Michael Penix, and of course my beautiful Bo Nix. Praise be unto him. One last thing. Coming out of college in terms of physical traits, Sam Darnold was a much more highly touted prospect than JJ McCarthy. It may have taken a while to click and for Darnold to find the right situation, but if you want to argue prospect, Darnold is the winner, and he's entering the beginning of his prime. The funniest thing about this situation is the Minnesota Vikings may have accidentally taken the Green Bay Packers approach, and the smartest thing to do is to pay Sam Darnold for 4 to 5 years and keep JJ McCarthy on your roster and develop him the way they did with Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers. Then there's the idea you could trade McCarthy.
Really?
Trading JJ McCarthy it's an intriguing option. The Vikings could potentially get a haul of draft picks or other assets for the young quarterback, especially from a team desperate for a long-term solution at the position.
Because JJ McCarthy, would have been a top, if not the top quarterback prospect in this draft.
And if the Vikings decided that they wanted to trade him, which I don't know if they will, I believe they would get back everything they put into him and then some.
It's a risky move, though. McCarthy was a top 10 pick for a reason, and he's got the kind of physical tools that can't be taught. Letting him go without giving him a real chance to prove himself would be a tough pill to swallow, because if he's good, there's another consideration: his salary and his fifth-year option. There's a reason 6 quarterbacks went in the top 12 picks last year. And it's not just that they play the most important position in sports. When you hit on a rookie QB like Denver, Washington, and New England with Chicago pending, you get them on a massive bargain that opens up a ton of cap space and allows you to bolster the rest of your roster and build a team worthy of Super Bowl contention. It's literally why the Vikings dumped Kirk Cousins' ass after he got benched this last season too. There hasn't been a more correct looking move at the top level in the NFL since maybe the Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford trade. If the Vikings opted for their current rookie pick and let Darnold go, they're taking an elite roster and potentially adding to it in free agency, if not simply extending some of their foundational pieces like Jordan Addison or Byron Murphy, who's due for free agency this offseason. Jordan Addison is also likely due for a DUI suspension next year. Darnold is only the 10th highest paid Viking in 2024, and him getting somewhere around $40 million or more would change the complexion of this team, no doubt about it, if they move forward with him. So this takes us to the nuclear option: letting Darnold walk in free agency and handing the reins to McCarthy in 2025. But that comes with its own set of risks. If Darnold goes on to thrive elsewhere, it would really look tough for the Vikings, wouldn't it? Remember a fella by the name of Drew Brees? The Chargers let him walk at the age of 27. Sounds familiar. And he went on to become a surefire Hall of Famer and Super Bowl champion with the Saints. The Vikings don't want to make the same mistake, especially after watching Darnold play at such a high level this season. They already made the right move by letting Kirk Cousins go, but I don't know if you want to hit on 14, because you might bust. Here's the strongest case for moving off of Darnold. It's the head coach. If you can say that Kevin O'Connell transformed Sam Darnold and got the very best out of him, you can say that he'll take an equally tool-heavy QB in McCarthy and make him just as good at a fraction of the price. O'Connell's system and that offensive infrastructure in Minneapolis adds up to one of the best quarterback-friendly situations in the league. And I think it's fair to say a lot of guys could, emphasis on could, have a lot of success being kept upright long enough to throw the ball to Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison down the field.
Sam Darnold sometimes being referred to this year as a system quarterback. Is that fair?
Absolutely not. And listen, these Green Bay defenders better be worried about Sam Darnold, because this guy's anything but a system quarterback, and he will absolutely knock you out.
For now, the focus remains on the present, though. The Vikings are in the midst of an unexpected playoff push, and Darnold is at the center of it all. He's already led 3 game-winning drives this season, and the team's 14-2 record is a testament to his impact. ESPN's Football Power Index gives the Vikings the 7th best odds of winning the Super Bowl, a far cry from the 6.8 win projection they were slated with to start the season. Now they've won their most games in a season since they went 15-1 in 1998. Darnold joins Peyton Manning and Steve McNair as the only quarterback to get 13 wins in their first season with the new team. When you start doing things players like that did, maybe you're just that damn good. With the game on the line this season, Sam Darnold has also had the best passer rating in the league. Darnold has proven he can win in this league, and his teammates and his coaches couldn't be happier for him. The guy is a model teammate. He always seems to say the right thing to the media or nothing at all. And he's one of those players that's been through a ton of shit, and he deserves every penny of what's going to end up being his 4th contract in the league. That journey to this point, I think, makes Sam Darnold a much more intriguing quarterback to have on your team as the Vikings moving forward. Ultimately, though, I think This question is one that's going to be answered in either January or February. Sam Darnold is going to write his next contract based on what he does in the NFC side of the playoffs. If he gets Minnesota into the Super Bowl for the first time since 1976, I don't think there's any way in which he's not a Viking this time next year, and for many years after, unless he wins them a Super Bowl. It makes them feel like we've achieved the thing. Now let's see what JJ's got. Sam Darnold would have to shit the bed so profusely that the Vikings would have to throw the bed out with him this offseason to move on. You have to consider the history in Minnesota. This is a franchise that fell short of a Super Bowl 4 times in the early to mid 1970s, has always been competitive and stable, but has fallen short of even appearing in a Super Bowl since they lost to the Raiders 48 years ago.
Super Bowl!
If Sam Darnold clears that hurdle and gets them to the Super Bowl, in 2025 here, he's going down as a fan favorite and a franchise icon forever. And there's an even bigger cost to letting that guy go in favor of a totally unproven commodity in JJ McCarthy. It doesn't matter where he was picked. Darnold's been the best story of this season so far. If I'm Minnesota, the answer is pretty clear for me. Quarterbacks are incredibly hard to come by in this league. And once you find one that's good, let alone one that's playing at an MVP level, you have to do everything in your power to keep him. We watched Kevin O'Connell with other QBs in 2023. He's great, but every great coach needs a great quarterback. See Belichick as your most recent example. This isn't a guy with one more deal left in him either. He'll only be 28 at the start of next season, and there's no reason to think he can't get even better with more experience in Kevin O'Connell's system. Imagine Minnesota going multiple seasons and sweeping the Packers. Darnold might not ask to break the bank either because he's seen the other side, and he knows he walked into the perfect situation. In a hand of 21, you don't always hit on 14. For the Vikings, I think they need to stay. Thanks for watching That's Good Sports. Please subscribe here on YouTube. If you enjoyed this video, share it with a Vikings fan. I'm sure they'll like it too, right? Don't show any Packers fans this one. It might scare them. It just might scare them a lot.